I stared at my phone in disbelief, reading the text from Maria, our nanny of 6 months. Ms. Olivia, we need to talk. Your stepfather has been paying me to report on you, but I have proof of everything. My hands trembled as I sank into my home office chair. At 32, as a single mother to my 4-year-old daughter Lily, I'd grown accustomed to my stepfather Robert's attempts to control my life. But this was a new low. Maria had seemed perfect when she started, wonderful with Lily, professional and highly recommended. Now I understood why. Robert had planted her. Come over after Lily's bedtime, I texted back. My mind raced through every conversation, every moment I'd shared with Maria in our home. What had she reported? What ammunition had I unknowingly given my stepfather? At 8:30 p.m., with Lily sound asleep, Maria sat across from me at my kitchen table. Her usually confident demeanor was replaced with nervous energy as she pulled out her phone. I was desperate for work when your stepfather approached me, she began, her voice low. He offered double the normal salary to be your nanny, but with conditions. I had to report everything, your schedules, conversations, visitors, anything about your dating life. And you agreed. I felt betrayed, even though I could see the guilt in her eyes. At first, yes. But then I saw what kind of man he really was. Maria placed her phone on the table. 2 weeks after I started, I began recording every meeting with him. Every phone call. Every instruction he gave me. She played the first recording. Robert's familiar voice filled my kitchen. I don't care what you have to do. Find something we can use against her. That child deserves better than a mother who works 60 hours a week. My blood boiled. I'd built my consulting business from nothing after my divorce, working hard to provide for Lily. Yes, I worked long hours, but I'd structured my schedule around Lily's needs. There's more, Maria continued, swiping through files. He wanted me to leave evidence of neglect, stage situations that would look bad for you. Another recording played. Leave some dishes unwashed. Make sure there's never healthy food in the fridge when the surprise inspections happen. We need to build a case. Surprise inspections, I asked. He's been sending private investigators to document your unsafe home environment. But I've been keeping my own records. Your house is always clean. Lily is well cared for, and you spend quality time with her every day. I thought about Robert, my mother's second husband, who'd entered my life when I was 12. He'd always tried to micromanage my life, believing his wealth gave him that right. When I divorced Lily's father 2 years ago, refusing Robert's demands to pursue full custody, his controlling behavior had escalated. Why are you showing me this now? I asked Maria. Because yesterday he told me his final plan. She played one last recording. Robert's voice was triumphant. The evidence is nearly complete. Next week, we file for emergency custody. With your documentation of her incompetence, the judge will have no choice. My wife and I will finally give that child the life she deserves. My heart raced. He wants to take Lily. Maria nodded. But he doesn't know I've documented everything. Every real interaction between you and Lily. Every loving moment. Every bedtime story. And most importantly, every manipulative instruction he gave me. I studied the nanny's face, seeing determination replace her earlier guilt. Why did you change your mind about helping him? Because I watched you with Lily. You're an amazing mother, Ms. Olivia. What he's doing is wrong, and I want to help you stop him. I reached for my phone, ready to call my lawyer, when a text from Robert appeared. Hope you're ready for some changes. See you in court next week. Looking at Maria, I asked, will you testify about all of this? I've already organized all the evidence. Every recording is time-stamped and backed up. He never suspected I was working against him because I kept sending him the reports he wanted. They just happened to be completely truthful about what a good mother you are. For the first time in months, I felt hope. Robert had finally overplayed his hand. We need to move quickly, I said, already drafting an email to my lawyer. He'll try to discredit you once he realizes what's happening. Maria smiled grimly. Let him try. The truth is all on these recordings. And wait until you hear what he said about the judge he's trying to bribe. Robert thought he'd found the perfect spy. Instead, he'd given me exactly what I needed to end his interference in our lives forever. The next week would change everything, just not in the way he planned. The following days were a blur of legal preparations and strategy meetings. My lawyer, Amanda Chin, couldn't believe our luck with the evidence Maria had collected. This is more than just attempted custody interference, Amanda said, reviewing the recordings. We're looking at potential criminal charges for attempted bribery of a court official. We were in her office, listening to Robert's most damning conversation. Judge Peterson owes me. Once I make another donation to his re-election campaign, he'll see things our way. No judge would leave a child with a mother who's never home. Maria sat beside me, providing context for each recording. He made that call right after telling me to start documenting every minute Ms. Olivia spent working. He wanted me to exaggerate her absence. But you didn't, I said, still amazed by her loyalty. No, I kept accurate records instead. You work from home 3 days a week, have breakfast and dinner with Lily every day, and never miss her important moments. The truth was your best defense. Just then, my phone buzzed. It was my mother, Robert's wife. Olivia. What's this I hear about you threatening Robert? He's only trying to help. I put the phone on speaker. Mom, do you know what your husband has been doing? Trying to protect his granddaughter. You're always working, always on your phone. Robert says. Robert paid my nanny to spy on me, I interrupted. He's trying to bribe a judge to take Lily away from me. Silence filled the line. Then, that's ridiculous. He would never. Amanda nodded, and I played one of the recordings. My mother gasped as she heard her husband's voice plotting against her daughter. There's more, I said softly. Hours more. Would you like to hear how he plans to use your money to fund this scheme? Or how he's been having me followed? I need time to think, my mother whispered before hanging up. Amanda started organizing papers. We're filing for an emergency protective order. Based on these recordings, we can prove harassment and attempted parental alienation. He won't take this well, Maria warned. He's used to getting his way. As if on cue, my phone lit up with a text from Robert. Just heard you're spreading lies about me. Remember who paid for your first car, your college. Don't make me your enemy. I showed the message to Amanda, who added it to her growing file. Classic intimidation. He's digging his own grave. That evening, while Maria stayed with Lily, I met my mother at a cafe. She looked tired, her usually perfect makeup slightly smudged. I confronted him, she said, stirring her untouched coffee. He said it was all taken out of context, that he was protecting Lily from your neglect. And you believe him? She pulled out her phone, playing a recording of her own. Robert's voice filled our quiet corner. Of course I paid the nanny. Someone needs to document how unfit Olivia is. Once we have custody, we can raise Lily properly. Your daughter never deserved to be a mother. I recorded him without knowing about your evidence, my mother said, her voice breaking. I needed to know the truth. I reached across the table, taking her hand. Help us stop him, Mom. She squeezed my hand back. I already called my lawyer this morning. I'm filing for divorce. Meanwhile, Maria had been documenting Robert's increasing attempts to contact her. He'd offered more money, then resorted to threats when she stopped responding. Delete everything and stick to the plan, his last message read, or you'll never work in childcare again. But Maria hadn't worked as a nanny for 15 years to be intimidated. She'd already contacted her previous employers, warning them about Robert's potential interference. My reputation is built on honesty and care, she told me. His threats only proved we're doing the right thing. Amanda filed our paperwork the next morning. By afternoon, Robert was served with both a protective order and notice of our countersuit regarding his interference. His response was immediate and explosive. He showed up at my house, ignoring the protective order, only to find police waiting. Maria had called them the moment his car appeared on our street. You ungrateful brat, he shouted as officers approached him. After everything I've done for you. I stood in my doorway, Lily safely inside with Maria, watching as the man who tried to control my life for 20 years was finally faced with consequences. Everything you've done was for yourself, I called back. And now everyone knows it. As Robert was escorted away, my mother's car pulled up. She hurried to hug me, then went inside to see Lily. Looking at the police car disappearing around the corner, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Robert had tried to use Maria as his spy, but instead, she'd become my strongest ally. His own arrogance had blinded him to the possibility that someone might choose integrity over money. Tomorrow would bring more challenges, court appearances, testimony, the formal custody hearing. But for now, I had my daughter, my mother back on my side, and irrefutable evidence of Robert's true nature. The spy he planted in my house had become his downfall, and I couldn't help but appreciate the irony. The courthouse hallway buzzed with tension 3 weeks later. Robert sat with his legal team, his usually immaculate appearance showing signs of strain. My mother sat on our side, her divorce papers filed the week before. "Remember," Amanda whispered, "let the evidence speak for itself." Maria's recordings tell the whole story. Judge Wilson, not Pearson, presided over the case. Robert's attempted bribery scheme had been exposed, leading to a separate investigation. As the hearing began, Robert's lawyer tried to paint him as a concerned grandfather, worried about his granddaughter's welfare. Then Maria took the stand. "Please tell the court about your employment arrangement with Mr. Stanford," Amanda requested. Maria spoke clearly, her professional demeanor unwavering. "Mr. Stanford hired me through my agency, offering double my usual rate. He said it was to ensure quality care for his granddaughter, but during our first meeting, he revealed the true purpose." She played the initial recording. Robert's voice filled the courtroom. "I need detailed reports. Every mistake she makes, every minute she's working instead of mothering. We'll build a case for custody, and you'll be generously compensated for your help." Robert's face reddened as his own words condemned him. His lawyer attempted to object, but Judge Wilson overruled him. "And how did you respond to this request?" Amanda asked. "I began documenting everything, but not in the way Mr. Stanford wanted. I recorded our meetings, saved his messages, and kept accurate records of Ms. Mitchell's parenting. The truth was very different from what he wanted to hear." Maria proceeded to present her daily logs. My morning routines with Lily, our family dinners, the way I'd structured my work around my daughter's schedule. She showed photos of our art projects, videos of bedtime stories, and documentation of every parent-teacher meeting I'd attended. "Mr. Stanford insisted Ms. Mitchell was neglectful," Maria continued, "but I witnessed a devoted mother who balanced work and family with extraordinary care." During cross-examination, Robert's lawyer tried to discredit Maria. "Isn't it true you violated your employment contract by recording these conversations?" "My contract requires me to report any attempts to harm my charges or their families," Maria replied calmly. "Mr. Stanford's actions posed a direct threat to Lily's well-being and family stability. I acted according to my professional ethics." When Robert took the stand, his testimony unraveled quickly. Under Amanda's questioning, he couldn't explain away his recorded conversations about bribing Judge Pearson or his instructions to fabricate evidence. "I was protecting my granddaughter," he finally exploded. "Olivia works too much. She lives in a modest house. Lily deserves better." "Better than a mother's love," Judge Wilson interrupted. "Better than stability and honest work." The judge's tone made it clear where this was heading. My mother testified last, presenting her own recordings and describing how Robert had manipulated her perception of my parenting. "I was wrong to doubt my daughter," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "Robert convinced me that his wealth and influence meant he knew best. I've never been more ashamed of my choices." Judge Wilson's ruling was decisive. Not only did she dismiss Robert's custody petition, but she also granted a permanent restraining order protecting both Lily and me. Furthermore, she referred the evidence of attempted bribery to the district attorney's office. "Mr. Stanford," she concluded, "this court finds your actions to be a disturbing abuse of power and resources. You attempted to destroy a healthy family relationship for your own control. That stops today." Outside the courthouse, Maria hugged me tightly. "It's really over," she whispered. "Will you stay on as Lily's nanny?" I asked. "I understand if you want to move on after all this." She smiled warmly. "Try to get rid of me. Lily and you are family now." My mother approached hesitantly. "The house feels too big now that Robert's gone. Maybe I could visit more often. Get to know my granddaughter properly this time." "We'd like that," I replied, watching Lily show Maria her new drawing. That evening, as Maria prepared to leave, she handed me a final recording. "I saved this one for after the trial," she said. "It's different from the others." Later, after Lily was asleep, I played it. It was a compilation of moments Maria had captured over her months with us. Lily's laughter during our dance parties, my voice reading bedtime stories, our silly songs while making breakfast. The everyday magic of our life that Robert had tried to destroy. I sent Maria a text. "Thank you for seeing the truth worth protecting." Her reply came quickly. "Thank you for showing me what real family looks like." Robert had wanted a spy to destroy my family. Instead, he'd given me an ally who helped make it stronger. As I checked on Lily one last time, I smiled at the irony. Our modest house was full of more love and loyalty than his mansion had ever known. Sometimes the best revenge isn't revenge at all. It's living well, surrounded by people who choose truth over power and love over control. Robert's perfect spy had turned out to be perfectly imperfect for his plans and perfectly perfect for ours. Your children haven't won anything like the others. My NIL, Martha, cut through the elegant banquet hall, blocking our path to the family table. My kids, Sarah and Michael, ages 12 and 14, stood frozen beside me, their faces flushing with embarrassment. "Look at Jessica's children," Martha continued, gesturing to my SIL's perfectly polished twins with their matching violin cases and academic medals. 3-time state champions, and Tommy's son just won the regional science fair. What have your kids done except played in the dirt all day? I felt Michael's hand tighten in mine. Sarah's shoulders slumped forward as if trying to make herself invisible. My name is Anna Williams, and at 35, I was watching my mother-in-law crush my children's spirits at what was supposed to be a family celebration. "This is my achievement ceremony," Martha announced, straightening her designer jacket. "I'm receiving the Citizen of the Year award." "I can't have." She waved dismissively at my children. "Underachievers at my table. What will my friends think?" The banquet hall suddenly felt suffocating. Other guests were starting to stare, their whispered conversations barely masking their interest in our family drama. My husband, David, was stuck at work, probably for the best. He always froze when his mother showed her true colors. I looked at my children, really looked at them. Michael, in his carefully chosen button-down shirt, his collar slightly crooked. Sarah, in her favorite blue dress, the one she picked specially for her grandmother's big night. They had been so excited to attend, even helping me pick out Martha's gift. "You're right," I said calmly, my voice steady despite the anger burning in my chest. "We shouldn't be here." Martha's triumphant smile made my blood boil, but I wasn't finished. "Come on, kids," I said, taking their hands. "We have more important things to do." "Anna," Martha hissed, her perfectly made-up face twisting in confusion. "Don't you dare make a scene." I turned back to her, my voice just loud enough for the nearby tables to hear. "No scenes, Martha. Just 3 people who know their worth isn't measured by trophies or medals. Enjoy your award." As we walked out, heads held high, I heard Sarah whisper, "Mom, are we really underachievers?" "No, sweetie," I replied, squeezing her hand. "Your grandmother just doesn't understand what real achievement looks like." What Martha didn't know, what she had never bothered to learn, was that my children had been working on something far more meaningful than any competition or award. For the past year, they had been turning our backyard into a sanctuary for local wildlife, particularly endangered butterflies. It started with Michael's science project on habitat loss. Instead of just writing a report, he had convinced Sarah to help him transform our garden. They researched native plants, built feeding stations, and created the perfect environment for butterflies to thrive. The local environmental society had noticed. They had been quietly documenting my children's work, amazed by their dedication and the results they had achieved. But we hadn't told anyone in the family. Martha would have just dismissed it as playing in the dirt. As we drove home, I made a decision. "How about ice cream?" I suggested, taking a different turn. "But what about the garden?" Michael asked. "We were going to check on the chrysalises tonight." "The butterflies can wait an hour," I smiled. "Sometimes you need ice cream to wash away bad memories." At the parlor, Sarah stirred her sundae thoughtfully. "Mom, why doesn't Grandma like what we do?" I considered my words carefully. Some people only value things they can show off. They don't understand that real achievement isn't always about winning competitions or getting medals. "Like our butterflies?" Michael perked up. "Exactly like your butterflies," I agreed. "You two have created something amazing, something that's making a real difference. That's worth more than any award." What we didn't know then was that our quiet exit from Martha's ceremony would set off a chain of events none of us could have predicted. The local news station had been covering the awards, and a young reporter had overheard our exchange. She had also heard whispers about two kids who had created a butterfly sanctuary in their backyard. As we finished our ice cream, my phone buzzed with a text from David. "Mom's furious. Says you ruined her big night. What happened?" I typed back, "Your mother decided the kids weren't achievement worthy enough to attend. We left before she could hurt them more." His response was immediate. "Coming home now. We need to talk." I looked at my children, finishing their ice cream and already discussing their plans for expanding the butterfly garden. They had no idea that their quiet dedication was about to capture the attention of our entire community. "Ready to check on those chrysalises?" I asked, standing up. Their faces lit up with genuine excitement, the kind that no amount of forced competition could create. As we headed home, I realized that sometimes the greatest achievements aren't the ones that come with trophies and ceremonies. Sometimes they're found in the quiet dedication of two kids who decided to make their corner of the world a little bit better. Little did we know, tomorrow's headline would read, "Local children create haven for endangered butterflies while grandmother receives Citizen of the Year award." Martha's perfectly planned ceremony was about to be overshadowed by the very achievements she had dismissed. "Mom," Sarah said as we pulled into our driveway, "do you think the monarchs will emerge tonight?" I smiled, thinking of the symbolism. "Maybe, sweetie. Sometimes the most beautiful things happen when you least expect them." David's car was already in the driveway, and I could see him standing in the backyard, staring at our children's creation with new eyes. Maybe it was time for everyone to understand what real achievement looks like. The security lights illuminated the garden, where dozens of butterflies were settling in for the night, their wings catching the light like stained glass. In that moment, I knew we had made the right choice leaving Martha's ceremony. Some achievements don't need an audience to be meaningful. Tomorrow would bring its own challenges, but for now we had butterflies to watch and a garden to tend. Sometimes the greatest victory is simply staying true to what you believed in, even when others can't see its value. The morning after Martha's award ceremony, our quiet breakfast was interrupted by an insistent knocking at the door. I opened it to find Melissa Chen, a local news reporter, standing on our porch with a camera crew. "Mrs. Williams? I'm from Channel 5 News. We heard about your children's butterfly sanctuary and would love to do a story. The timing seems particularly relevant given last night's events." I glanced back at Michael and Sarah, who were peering curiously from the kitchen. "How did you hear about our garden?" Melissa smiled. "Word travels fast. Plus, we were covering the Citizen of the Year ceremony when you left. Several guests mentioned your children's environmental project. Is it true they've managed to attract 5 endangered species?" Before I could respond, my phone buzzed. Martha's name flashed on the screen, accompanied by a link to the local paper's website. The headline made my heart skip a beat. "Young environmentalists create butterfly haven while grandmother receives controversial award." "Mom." Sarah called from the kitchen. "The chrysalises are starting to move." I turned back to Melissa. "Would you like to see something amazing?" The next hour was a blur of activity. The news crew followed my children through their garden as they expertly explained their project. Michael showed off the special nectar plants they'd researched and planted. Sarah demonstrated the water features they had designed to create the perfect microclimate. "And here," Michael said proudly, pointing to a cluster of chrysalises, "is where the magic happens." As if on cue, one of the chrysalises began to crack. The camera zoomed in as a monarch butterfly slowly emerged, its wings gradually unfurling in the morning sun. "This is incredible," Melissa breathed. "How long have you been working on this?" "Almost a year," Sarah replied. "We started after Michael learned about habitat loss at school." "Did you know monarch butterflies have declined by more than 80% in recent years?" My phone continued to buzz with messages. Jessica, whose violin-playing twins were Martha's pride and joy, wanted to know why her children were being overshadowed by butterflies. Martha had left several voicemails, each more agitated than the last. But I wasn't listening to any of them. I was watching my children shine, explaining complex environmental concepts with confidence and passion. This wasn't about competitions or medals. This was about making a real difference. "Mrs. Williams," Melissa pulled me aside. "Would you care to comment on why your family left the award ceremony last night?" I thought carefully before responding. Sometimes people have different definitions of achievement. My children may not have traditional accolades, but they've created something meaningful, something that's helping preserve endangered species. I couldn't be prouder. The story aired that evening. My kids sat transfixed, watching themselves on television. The piece was beautifully done, showcasing their garden in all its glory. Butterflies dancing through the air as Michael and Sarah explained their project. Then came Martha's reaction. She had apparently stormed into the news station, demanding they take down the story. "Those children are embarrassing our family," she had declared. "Their little garden project is stealing attention from my achievement." The station, of course, included her outburst in the segment. The contrast between my children's genuine passion and their grandmother's petty jealousy couldn't have been clearer. "Mom?" Michael asked after the broadcast. "Did we do something wrong?" I pulled him close. "No, sweetheart, you did everything right. Some people just can't handle it when others shine." That evening, David finally found his voice. After watching the news story 3 times, he turned to our children. "I had no idea," he said softly. "All this time, I thought you were just playing in the garden. This is extraordinary." The next morning, our doorbell rang again. This time, it was Dr. Eleanor Martinez from the State University's Environmental Science Department. She had seen the news story and wanted to offer my children an opportunity to participate in a real research project. "What you've created here," she explained, gesturing to the garden, "is exactly what we've been trying to promote. Would your children be interested in helping us document butterfly migration patterns?" Sarah and Michael's eyes lit up. This wasn't about winning medals or beating others. This was about contributing to something larger than themselves. As they eagerly discussed the project with Dr. Martinez, my phone buzzed yet again. Martha had posted a long rant on social media about attention-seeking grandchildren and real achievements versus hobbies. I silenced my phone without reading further. Outside, my children were helping Dr. Martinez set up monitoring equipment, their faces glowing with purpose. Sometimes the best response to criticism is simply to keep doing what you know is right. The butterflies danced through the garden, oblivious to the family drama they had sparked. One landed on Sarah's shoulder as she worked, its wings catching the sunlight like a living medal, more beautiful and meaningful than any award Martha could ever receive. The aftermath of the news story spread like wildfire through our community. Within days, schools started calling, asking if my children would give presentations on butterfly conservation. Environmental groups reached out about partnerships. Even the mayor's office contacted us about implementing similar gardens in public spaces. But the most unexpected development came from Jessica, my sister-in-law. Her twins, the violin prodigies, had watched the news story and become fascinated by the butterflies. They begged to visit our garden. "I don't know what to do," Jessica confessed when she called. "Mother's forbidden us from contacting you, but the girls won't stop talking about the butterflies." I thought about my nieces, so often paraded around with their violins like show ponies. "Bring them over," I said. "Some things are more important than family politics." The next day, Jessica's twins stood in our garden, their usual perfect posture relaxed for once, eyes wide with wonder as Michael and Sarah showed them how to identify different species. "Can we help?" Amy, the older twin by 2 minutes, asked shyly. "Maybe we could play music out here?" I read that butterflies respond to vibrations. It was the first time I ever heard either twin suggest playing music for joy rather than competition. Martha's reaction was nuclear. When she discovered Jessica had betrayed her by visiting us, she threatened to cut off the twins' violin lessons. But something had shifted. Jessica, for the first time, stood up to her mother. "Enough," she said during a family dinner we weren't invited to. "Your grandchildren have created something beautiful and important. Why can't you see that?" The environmental project expanded beyond our backyard. Dr. Martinez helped the kids establish a network of butterfly gardens throughout the community. Other children joined in, inspired by what they'd seen on the news. Martha made one last attempt to reassert control. She showed up at our house unannounced, clutching her Citizen of the Year award. "This," she said, thrusting the trophy forward, "is what real achievement looks like. Not playing with bugs in the dirt." But her words had lost their power. At that moment, a group of elementary school students was in our garden, learning about ecosystem conservation from Michael and Sarah. Their eager faces and thoughtful questions spoke volumes about what real achievement looked like. "You know, Martha," I said quietly, "those bugs in the dirt have taught my children more about leadership, dedication, and making a real difference than any competition ever could. But you're too busy counting medals to see it. She left in a huff, but I noticed her pause at the garden gate, watching as a monarch butterfly landed on Sarah's outstretched hand. For just a moment, her expression softened, showing a glimpse of the wonder she had lost in her endless pursuit of prestige. 3 months after Martha's award ceremony, Michael and Sarah received their own recognition, the State Environmental Conservation Award for Youth Leadership. They were honored not for competing against others, but for inspiring an entire community to protect endangered species. During their acceptance speech, Sarah said something that brought tears to my eyes. Sometimes, the smallest creatures can teach us the biggest lessons about what really matters. Martha wasn't there to hear it. She declined the invitation, claiming she had a more important engagement. But Jessica came with her twins, who had started their own butterfly garden. Even David's father, long silenced by Martha's dominant personality, attended and beamed with pride. "You know what's funny, Mom?" Michael said that evening as we watched butterflies flit through our garden. "Grandma's award is sitting on her shelf, but ours is out here, flying around everywhere we look." I hugged him close, understanding exactly what he meant. Real achievements don't always come with trophies. Sometimes they flutter by on delicate wings, leaving the world a little better than they found it. 6 months later, the local news did a follow-up story. By then, our butterfly sanctuary project had spread to 20 other locations. Martha's Citizen of the Year award had gathered dust on her mantle. But my children's legacy was alive and growing, touching lives and making a real difference. Looking back, I realized that Martha's rejection at her award ceremony hadn't been an ending. It had been a beginning. She had tried to shame my children for not fitting her definition of achievement, but in doing so, she had only highlighted the true meaning of success. As I watched my children lead another group of students through their garden, I smiled, thinking how sometimes the greatest achievements come not from competing with others, but from following your heart and doing what you know is right. The butterflies continued their dance through our garden, living proof that sometimes the most meaningful victories don't come with trophies at all. "No children at Christmas this year," my mother-in-law Marian declared, adjusting her designer glasses with that self-satisfied smirk I'd grown to detest. "I'm hosting my charity circle friends, and we want a sophisticated evening. Surely you understand." I stood in her pristine kitchen, where my kids had baked cookies with her last Christmas, watching as she meticulously arranged appetizer plates as if my world hadn't just shattered. My 7-year-old Emma and 5-year-old Lucas had been making handmade ornaments for weeks, and they were excited to show their grandmother their creations. "But Marian," I started, keeping my voice steady, "the kids have been looking forward to this for months. They've even made you special." She cut me off with a wave of her manicured hand. "Olivia, dear, you know how children can be. They'll get overexcited and make a mess, and my friends from the Heritage Society are particular. Besides, wouldn't you and James enjoy an adult evening for once?" The condescension in her voice made my skin crawl. My husband James was away on a business trip, conveniently missing this conversation. He'd been raised by this woman who valued appearance over everything else, and sometimes I saw glimpses of her influence in him, though he'd grown to be a warmer person. "The kids will be devastated," I said quietly. Marian sighed dramatically. "They'll get over it. Children are resilient. Now, about the dress code, I'm thinking of a black tie. Do you still have that blue dress from Sarah's wedding? The one that almost fits you properly?" I felt heat rise to my cheeks but kept my expression neutral. This wasn't the first time Marian had taken jabs at my appearance or parenting, but excluding my children from Christmas, that was crossing a line I couldn't ignore. That evening, I sat on Emma's bed, trying to explain why we wouldn't be going to Grandma's for Christmas. Her lower lip trembled as she clutched the ornament she'd made, a carefully decorated photo frame with a picture of her and Lucas with their grandmother. "But Mommy, I made this special for Grandma Marian. She said she wanted more pictures of us for her fancy house last time." Lucas heard the conversation from his room and came padding in, dragging his favorite dinosaur blanket. "Did we do something bad?" he asked, his big brown eyes filling with tears. "No, sweetie." I pulled them both close. "Grandma's just having a grown-up party this year." "But it's Christmas," Lucas whispered into my shoulder. That night, after the kids were asleep, I made some calls. First, I thanked my best friend Anna, who ran the local community center. Then, I thanked my sister Katie, and finally, I thanked Pastor Mike from our church. By the time I finished, a plan was forming. The following day, Marion called. "Olivia, I've been thinking about the menu. You're not still doing that gluten-free thing, are you? It makes planning so complicated." "Don't worry about me, Marion," I replied calmly. "I'll eat whatever you serve." "Wonderful." She sounded relieved. "And you've explained the new arrangement to the children?" "Yes, they understand they're not welcome at their grandmother's for Christmas." There was a slight pause. "Don't be dramatic, Olivia. I'm simply trying to host an elegant evening. My friends from the Heritage Society are very influential people." "Of course, Marion. I understand completely." My tone worried her because she added, "We can do something with the children another time. Perhaps the day after Christmas." "That won't be necessary," I replied. "We've made other plans." Over the next few weeks, I watched Marion post daily updates about her upcoming sophisticated Christmas soiree on social media. Pictures of her elaborate decorations hint at the expensive catering and constant mentions of her prestigious guest list. Her Heritage Society friends commented enthusiastically on each post, praising her impeccable taste. What she didn't know was that I'd been busy too. Anna had helped me organize something at the community center. Katie had reached out to other families we knew. Pastor Mike had made some calls of his own. The day before the party, Marion called again. "Olivia, dear, remember to arrive by 6 tomorrow. And do try to do something with your hair. Elizabeth from the Heritage Society is bringing her photographer to document the evening." "Of course, Marion. Wouldn't want to embarrass you in front of your important friends." "That's the spirit." She missed the sarcasm completely. "Oh, and James called. His flight's been delayed, but he should return just in time for the party." I smiled to myself. James knew exactly what time his flight was getting in, and it wasn't what his mother thought. We'd had a long talk about her behavior, and he was entirely on my side for the first time in our marriage. I helped Emma and Lucas pack their handmade ornaments that Christmas Eve morning, including the photo frame Emma had worked so hard on. "Where are we taking them, Mommy?" she asked. "Somewhere special, sweetheart. Somewhere where they'll be appreciated." As I loaded the kids into our car, I caught sight of Marion's house across the street. Caterers were already arriving, setting up for her sophisticated soiree. She stood in the driveway, directing them with grand gestures, every inch the society matron she aspired to be. She saw us getting into the car and waved, probably congratulating herself on how well her plan had worked out. I waved back, smiling brightly. "Ready for a real Christmas celebration?" I asked my children. They nodded enthusiastically, already forgetting their earlier disappointment. Marion had no idea what she was about to miss. Still, more importantly, she had no idea what her precious Heritage Society friends were about to learn about their perfect hostess who banned her grandchildren from Christmas. Sometimes, the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about showing people exactly who they chose to be. And Marion had made her choice very clear indeed. Marion's party was in full swing when I arrived. The valet took my car, and I smoothed down my dress, not the blue one she'd mentioned, but a stunning red number that made me feel confident and strong. The foyer of her Victorian mansion was decked out in what she called sophisticated Christmas decor, all white and silver, with not a hint of childhood joy or traditional holiday warmth. Perfect for someone who'd banned children from Christmas. "Olivia, darling." Marion swooped in, air-kissing my cheeks. "You look festive," she added, eyeing my red dress with barely concealed disapproval. "Come, let me introduce you to everyone." She paraded me around like a prop, introducing me to her Heritage Society friends. "This is my daughter-in-law," she'd say as if it were my only identity. Elizabeth, the society president, was holding court near the fireplace, her silver hair perfectly coiffed. "Marion has told us so much about your family," Elizabeth said warmly. "Where are your children tonight? I'd love to meet my dear friend's grandchildren." I felt Marion stiffen beside me. Before she could speak, I smiled brightly. "Oh, they're at the community center Christmas celebration. They're part of something very special tonight." "The community center?" Elizabeth's eyes lit up. "The one on Maple Street? I'm on their board of directors. I didn't know Marion's grandchildren were involved there." Marion's perfectly painted smile faltered. "Oh, well, children, always involved in something or other. Olivia, dear, I believe James is looking for you." But Elizabeth wasn't done. I received the most heartwarming invitation from them. They're doing a special Christmas program tonight about bringing joy to children who might otherwise miss out on holiday celebrations. I was planning to stop by later. How wonderful, I replied, watching Marian's face pale slightly. You should go. I hear it's going to be quite meaningful. Other guests started chiming in. Oh yes, I got that invitation too. Pastor Mike mentioned something about it at last week's charity meeting. Didn't they say something about a special presentation by local children? Marian's attempts to steer the conversation elsewhere were increasingly desperate. The caterer has prepared the most exquisite truffle infused. Marian, Elizabeth interrupted, you must be so proud that your grandchildren are involved in such a meaningful community service, especially at their young age. Just then, James arrived. He was not running late, as Marian had claimed he would be, but right on time and fully aware of our plan. He kissed my cheek and greeted his mother, whose relief at his arrival quickly turned to confusion as he announced, Mother, I believe it's time we headed to the community center. We wouldn't want to miss the children's presentation. But the party, Marian sputtered. Your father's special wassail tradition. Actually, Elizabeth interjected, we'd all love to see what the community center has prepared. It is Christmas Eve, after all. What better time to support our local children? Marian watched helplessly as her carefully orchestrated party began shifting focus. Her prestigious guests gathered their coats, enthusiastically discussing carpooling to the community center. What have you done? She hissed at me when no one looked. I've done exactly what you asked, Marian. I kept the children away from your sophisticated party. But I never promised to keep your decision from your friends. When we arrived, the community center was warm and bright, filled with the kind of Christmas spirit that Marian's sterile decorations could never capture. Construction paper chains and children's artwork decorated the walls, and the smell of hot chocolate and cookies filled the air. Emma and Lucas were at the front of the room with other children, preparing for their presentation. Their faces lit up when they saw us. But they stayed focused on their tasks, just as they'd practiced. Marian's friends filed in, exclaiming over the decorations and the apparent joy in the room. Pastor Mike welcomed everyone warmly, making special mention of the Heritage Society members' attendance. Then the children's presentation began. Each child spoke about what Christmas meant to them and shared something they'd made. When Emma's turn came, she held up her photo frame. This is the ornament I made for my grandma, she said into the microphone. It's a picture of me and my brother with her from last Christmas, when we baked cookies together. But this year, she said children aren't allowed at her Christmas party because they're not sophisticated enough. You could have heard a pin drop in the room. Elizabeth and the other society members turned to stare at Marian, whose face had gone from pale to crimson. Lucas went next, clutching his dinosaur blanket for courage. I drew this picture of our family, he said softly, but I had to draw Grandma Marian far away because she doesn't want us around for Christmas anymore. Marian stepped forward, perhaps to stop what was happening, but James touched her arm firmly. Let them finish, Mother, he said quietly. The other children shared similar stories of feeling unwelcome, being told they weren't good enough, and being excluded from family celebrations. It wasn't just about Christmas anymore. It was about every child who'd ever been made to feel less than perfect. This is why we created this celebration, Pastor Mike explained to the crowd. We want to ensure that every child knows they are valued, loved, and worthy of celebrating Christmas, regardless of how sophisticated they may or may not be. Elizabeth stepped forward, dabbing at her eyes. Marian, she said, her voice carrying clearly through the room, I had no idea you'd excluded your grandchildren from Christmas. This is not what the Heritage Society stands for. We fund programs that support families, not tear them apart. The aftermath of the community center presentation was swift and devastating for Marian. Elizabeth pulled her aside immediately while other Heritage Society members gathered around Emma and Lucas, praising their bravery and admiring their handmade gifts. I simply cannot understand, Elizabeth declared loudly enough for everyone to hear, how anyone could look at these precious children and decide they weren't sophisticated enough for Christmas. Marian attempted damage control, her voice shrill with desperation. I was just trying to host an elegant evening. Olivia twisted everything around. Did Olivia make you ban your grandchildren from Christmas? James asked, finally speaking up. Did she force you to choose your social status over your family? James, darling, you don't understand. No, Mother, I understand perfectly now. I've watched you chip away at Olivia's confidence for years, criticize our parenting, and make subtle jabs at our children. But this, excluding them from Christmas, that's unforgivable. The children's presentation had evolved into a joyous Christmas party. Emma and Lucas were surrounded by love and acceptance. Their handmade ornaments were proudly displayed on the community center's tree. The contrast between this warm celebration and Marion's stark, adults-only soiree couldn't have been more striking. The Heritage Society Board must discuss your position, Elizabeth informed Marion. We support family values, not social climbing at the expense of children. Marion's carefully constructed social world was crumbling. Her sophisticated Christmas party lay abandoned, her prestigious position in jeopardy, all because she couldn't see the true meaning of the holiday. I did mean, she stammered, but no one was listening anymore. Her friends were too busy enjoying real Christmas spirit with the children she deemed unworthy of her presence. Later that evening, as we prepared to leave, Emma approached her grandmother, holding out the photo frame ornament. You can still have this, Grandma Marion, she said softly. Everyone deserves a Christmas present, even if they made a mistake. That simple act of forgiveness from a 7-year-old finally broke through Marion's carefully maintained facade. She took the ornament with trembling hands, looking at it for the first time, the careful decoration, the happy photograph, the love that went into making it. I've been horrible, haven't I? She whispered, tears spilling down her perfectly made-up face. Yes, I replied honestly, but it's Christmas. And like Emma said, everyone deserves a chance to make things right. Marion spent Christmas Eve at the community center, her designer dress collecting glitter from the children's craft table, her perfectly coiffed hair slightly mussed from hugging her grandchildren. It wasn't the sophisticated evening she'd planned, but it was genuine, warm, and full of the true spirit of Christmas. The following year, Marion's Christmas party was very different. Her house was filled with children's laughter, handmade decorations hung proudly alongside her expensive ornaments, and Emma and Lucas had helped bake cookies for everyone. The Heritage Society members brought their grandchildren, and no one cared about being sophisticated. Sometimes it takes losing everything you thought you wanted to find what you need. Marion learned that lesson the hard way, but she knew it well. Our family Christmas photo that year showed her on the floor playing with Lucas and his dinosaurs. Her perfect hair mussed, her designer clothes slightly wrinkled, and her smile more genuine than I'd ever seen. Elizabeth often remarks that the community center Christmas celebration became a beloved tradition, reminding everyone that the holiday's true sophistication lies in bringing families together, not tearing them apart. For me, I learned that sometimes the best response to cruelty isn't anger or revenge, but simply allowing the truth to come to light. Marion's actions revealed who she was, and her redemption came from finally seeing herself through her grandchildren's eyes. Emma still has the photo of that Christmas Eve at the community center. In it, Marion is helping her hang an ornament, both covered in glitter and smiling. It's not sophisticated or elegant, but it's real. And that's what Christmas should be about. I don't want him here. This is supposed to be a perfect party. Amanda's voice rang across her perfectly manicured backyard, making heads turn. My 8-year-old son, Oliver, gripped my hand tighter, his other hand clutching the birthday gift he had carefully picked for his cousin Emma. My name is Jessica, and I never thought I'd see my sister-in-law publicly humiliate my son at her daughter's birthday party. Oliver has cerebral palsy and uses a walker, but his brilliant mind and kind heart make him the sweetest child you could meet. Amanda, he's your nephew, I said quietly, trying to keep my voice steady. He just wants to give Emma her present. I don't care, she snapped, her perfectly styled hair bouncing as she gestured wildly. Look at all these people, important people from our neighborhood. I can't have him. She lowered her voice to a harsh whisper, spoiling everything with that walker. What will people think? I felt Oliver trembling beside me, and my heart shattered. The other parents were starting to stare, some even filming with their phones, probably for their social media stories. Emma, wearing her princess dress, stood frozen by the bouncy castle, looking confused and upset. It's okay, Mommy, Oliver whispered, his voice quivering. We can go home. That was when something in me snapped, not in anger, but in clarity. I'd spent 5 years trying to maintain peace with Amanda, enduring her subtle jabs about Oliver's condition, her convenient forgetting to invite us to family events, her constant remarks about how difficult it must be to have a child like mine. "You're right, sweetheart," I said to Oliver, keeping my voice warm and loving. "We will go home." But first, I reached into my bag and pulled out my phone. I'd been recording the whole interaction ever since Amanda's initial cold greeting, something I had started doing months ago on my husband's advice. Amanda's eyes widened as she noticed my phone. "What are you doing?" "Just making memories," I said calmly, stopping the recording. "Emma, honey, Oliver brought you a special gift." He picked it out himself. I handed the beautifully wrapped package to my niece, who ran forward to take it, giving Oliver a quick hug before her mother pulled her back. "Get out," Amanda hissed, "and don't you dare share that video." I smiled, helping Oliver turn his walker around. "You know, Amanda, sometimes the perfect moments aren't the ones we plan, but the ones that show who we really are." As we walked away, I heard murmurs from the other parents. One mom called out, "Wait, let the boys stay, we don't mind." But I kept walking. This wasn't about proving a point or causing a scene. This was about teaching my son that his worth wasn't determined by people like Amanda. In the car, Oliver was quiet for a moment before asking, "Why doesn't Aunt Amanda like me, Mommy?" I turned to face him, seeing the hurt in his beautiful brown eyes. "Sweetheart, some people are so worried about how things look that they forget to see how things feel. But you know what? You are perfect exactly as you are." That evening, as Oliver played with his Legos, I sat at my computer, looking at the video I had recorded. My hands hovered over the keyboard as I debated what to do next. My husband, Tom, Oliver's stepfather, watched it with me, his jaw clenching with each of his sister's cruel words. "Post it," he said finally, "not for revenge, but because people like Oliver need to know they're not alone. And people like Amanda need to know they can't treat others this way anymore." I took a deep breath and started typing, crafting a simple, honest post about our experience. No accusations, no anger, just the truth about a young boy being turned away from his cousin's party because he didn't fit someone's idea of perfection. "Are you sure?" I asked Tom, my finger hovering over the post button. He nodded, watching Oliver happily build his Lego creation. Sometimes the right thing isn't the easy thing, but it's still right. I pressed post and closed my laptop, not knowing that by morning, our story would reach far beyond our small community, touching hearts and changing lives in ways I never expected. Little did Amanda know, her perfect party would become the catalyst for something much bigger than any of us could have imagined. I woke up the next morning to my phone buzzing nonstop. The video had gone viral overnight, with over 200,000 shares and counting. Comments flooded in from around the world, parents of disabled children sharing their own stories, disability advocates offering support, and countless messages condemning Amanda's behavior. "Mom, look," Oliver called from the living room, where he was watching his favorite cartoon. "That's us on the morning news." Sure enough, a local news station was running the story. They had pieced together not just my video, but clips from other parents at the party showing multiple angles of Amanda's meltdown. The headline read, "Local birthday party becomes spotlight for disability discrimination." My phone rang. It was my mother-in-law, Susan. "Jessica, I just saw the news," she said, her voice shaking. "I had no idea Amanda could be so. I'm so sorry. Is Oliver okay?" Before I could answer, another call beeped through. "Amanda." I declined it, watching as text messages from her flooded my screen. "Take it down now. You're destroying my reputation. My friends are canceling playdates with Emma. How could you do this to your own family?" Tom placed a hand on my shoulder, reading the messages. "She's still not getting it, is she? It's all about her image." The doorbell rang. Outside stood Emma, tears streaming down her face, clutching the gift Oliver had given her. A custom-made storybook about a princess who discovers her kingdom's greatest hero is her cousin, who uses a walker. "I opened it this morning," Emma sniffled. "Can I please play with Oliver? Mommy's been crying and yelling at her phone all day." My heart melted. "Of course, sweetie. Does your mom know you're here?" "Grandma brought me," she said, pointing to Susan's car and driveway. "Mommy's too busy calling her lawyer." As the kids played together, my phone kept buzzing. A major disability rights organization wanted to feature Oliver in their campaign. Local businesses were reaching out, offering to host an inclusive birthday party for both Oliver and Emma. Teachers from Emma's school were messaging about implementing disability awareness programs. Amanda's perfect party had unintentionally sparked a community-wide conversation about inclusion and acceptance. That afternoon, Tom's father called a family meeting. Amanda arrived looking disheveled, her perfect image cracking. Emma ran to hug Oliver the moment we walked in, ignoring her mother's attempt to stop her. "This ends now," Tom's father announced, his voice firm. "Amanda, you're going to listen without interrupting." He played the video on their large TV, making Amanda watch as her actions were displayed for the family to see. With each passing moment, her face grew paler. "That's not. I didn't mean," she stammered. "Yes, you did," Susan cut in. "You've been doing this to Oliver for years. We just didn't want to see it. But now, everyone sees it." Emma looked up from her play with Oliver. "Mommy, is this why Tyler from my class stopped coming to our house? His brother uses a wheelchair, and he said his mom doesn't want them around mean people." Amanda's perfect world was crumbling, and for the first time, she seemed to realize the true cost of her actions. But this wasn't the end of our story, it was just the beginning of a change none of us saw coming. A week after the video went viral, life had changed dramatically. The local community center reached out to host an inclusive Unity birthday party for both Oliver and Emma, complete with accessible games and activities for children of all abilities. The response was overwhelming. Over 200 families RSVP'd. Meanwhile, Amanda had gone from social media darling to pariah. Her carefully curated image as the perfect mother had crumbled as more stories emerged from other parents. Apparently, Oliver wasn't the only child she'd excluded from events over the years. The morning of the Unity party, I received an unexpected visit. Amanda stood on my doorstep, looking nothing like her usual polished self. "Can we talk?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. I let her in, watching as Oliver played in the living room with his new friends, kids from the neighborhood who had never visited before the video went public. "I lost my job," Amanda said, sinking into a kitchen chair. "The real estate company said they can't have someone representing them who discriminates against disabled clients. Emma's private school called. They're reviewing her enrollment unless I complete sensitivity training." I pushed a cup of coffee toward her. "What do you want, Amanda?" "I want," she paused, watching Oliver laugh with his friends. "I want to understand how I got it so wrong. Emma misses Oliver. She keeps asking why I'm a mean person. My own daughter is ashamed of me." For the first time, I saw real tears in Amanda's eyes, not the performative ones she usually displayed at family gatherings. "The party today," she continued, her voice unsteady. Would you let Emma attend? And maybe I could help. I need to do better. For Emma, for Oliver, for everyone I've hurt." The Unity party that afternoon was everything Amanda's perfect party wasn't. Children of all abilities played together on accessible equipment. Oliver gave a speech that left not a dry eye in the house. Local news covered the event, but this time the story was about inclusion and community. Amanda stood in the background, helping quietly where needed. She watched as Emma and Oliver led other kids in adaptive games, teaching them how to include everyone. The perfect princess party she had planned paled in comparison to this genuine celebration of joy and acceptance. Months have passed since then. Amanda's journey to understanding hasn't been easy, but she's trying. She enrolled in disability advocacy courses and now volunteers at the local children's hospital. Emma's birthday parties are now known for being the most inclusive in the neighborhood. Last week, during a family dinner, Oliver asked Amanda to help him with his science project about adaptive technology. The smile on her face was real this time, not the picture-perfect one she used to wear. "You know," she said to me later, "I spent so much time trying to create perfect moments that I miss all the truly beautiful ones." Oliver taught me that perfect isn't about how things look, it's about how they feel. The video that went viral still circles the internet, but now it's accompanied by a follow-up. Amanda speaking at disability awareness events, sharing her story of learning and change. Oliver sits in the front row at every speech, cheering on the aunt who finally learned to see him for who he really is. As for our family, we're stronger now, not despite our differences, but because of them. Oliver's walker is no longer something to hide. It's just part of who he is, like Emma's curly hair or Tom's laugh. Sometimes the most powerful changes come from the moments we least expect. What started as a birthday party disaster became a catalyst for transformation, not just for Amanda, but for our entire community. Oliver summed it up best in his latest school essay. My aunt used to think perfect meant everything had to look right. Now she knows perfect is when everyone feels like they belong. And really, isn't that the kind of perfection worth striving for?